Good morning and welcome to the ASDRP Researcher Interview Series. Today I'll be talking with Joseph Thomas. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing this morning?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing well, thank you. To start us off, would you tell me a little bit about how you found out about ASDRP?
Yeah, so at my school, Bellarmine College Prep in San Jose, I know a friend who's now a graduating senior who actually participated in ASDRP a couple of years ago and did it for a couple of years. So through contacting him and learning about what he does, I was able to find out about this opportunity and start working at ASDRP and working with other group members as well, which was really fun and as it has been so far.
That's awesome. I'm glad it's been so great so far. What year in school are you?
I'm a rising senior, so class of 2023.
Nice. And how long have you been researching here?
I started just this summer, but I've been doing research generally, like in machine learning and artificial intelligence, for a couple of years. But this is the first time at ASDRP.
Okay, very cool. And so are you part of the machine learning subgroup?
I'm part of Dr. Movie's group, the algorithmic bias one. Yeah.
Okay, nice. And then what specific project are you working on this summer?
Yeah, so our main goal for our project is to reduce bias in machine learning or artificial intelligence broadly using synthetic or fake image generation. To give more context for that, the reason we wanted to do this project is because one of the biggest driving factors for bias in machine learning is imbalance in data sets. As an example, Google Photos and Google broadly, one of the biggest companies, was flagged for bias because in Google Photos, a Black couple was classified as gorillas instead of actual people. And the reason for that is because there was lack of training on certain parts of the population, that being people with darker skin tones. So the fact that some data sets could be underrepresented by people, let's say, of darker skin tones, might mean that these sort of algorithms do better on people with lighter skin tones, which of course is a serious imbalance that causes problems down the road in the machine learning pipeline. So what we want to do is generate fake images, in this case of people, to balance those data sets, and specifically generate images of minority groups, like in the previous example, that being Black people, to reduce the bias and create more equality and improve accuracy and reduce bias ultimately in the machine learning problems that the algorithm might deal with.
Definitely. Yeah, that's definitely a very relevant and important problem. What got you interested in this in the first place?
Yeah, so just overall, when I first heard about Dr. Mu's group, that being algorithmic bias, I honestly wasn't super sure how big of a topic it was right now. In the past, I've done machine learning work with like various tasks such as predicting whether someone has Parkinson's disease or things like that, just using machine learning. But this was much more interesting to me because it's kind of challenging what machine learning even is in the first place. Should we be using it? How should we use it? Things like that. And that got me really interested in this topic. And actually a lot of different research to see some of the biggest problems, that being even the biggest companies like Google and Amazon have a bunch of problems with algorithmic bias and machine learning. So I became really interested in specifically faces because, of course, that's a huge problem in a variety of different areas like security, facial detection, things like that. So I kind of got interested in image generation and more like faces as well as the sort of main subject there.
Definitely. It's super interesting.
Yeah,
And so much of our life is being lived online. And so it's definitely important that those systems are
absolutely.
bias
Yeah.
free
Yeah.
and streamlined. So that's really cool. Um, what does a day in the life look like for you as you conduct your research?
Yeah, so at least when it comes to computer science, it's not super structured. It's honestly just try to make more progress as much as you can. For example, over the past few days, I've been trying to build a model, specifically a generative model known as a variational autoencoder, which tries to produce more images from like what's known as a latent space. I won't go too much into that, but I've been trying to build that model, and there's a lot of math, a lot of things to understand before you can really just go into building it. So I've been just doing more research, trying to understand more and more, and then writing some code on the side as well. But there's not, sometimes you might set out a specific task like train this model, but you might not even get close to that because there could be a lot of roadblocks, errors that could take hours to fix just for a single problem or bug that you encounter. So it's also just making more progress, having generally objectives that you have, but setting out one specific task could be difficult to do. But obviously, we should try to, of course, approach that and get closer to it. So it's kind of what the day in life looks like, just working on that, getting closer, writing more code, reading papers, understanding the math, things like that. That's generally what I've been doing.
Awesome. Sounds like interesting days. Are you physically working in the lab or do you mostly work remotely?
I only work remotely as of now with my group members that we meet like a couple times a week and we just discuss our progress, things like that. So all at home, yeah.
Nice. And what does it feel like working remotely?
Honestly, it's not too bad because whenever I've done coding, things like that, and research, it's just, pretty much always been at home. So it's not too much of a big difference for me. I do like the fact that despite it being at home, I do have group members I can work with, talk with them, get their feedback, brainstorming ideas, things like that. So that's been really fun. So even though it might be remote, but I know that down the line there'll be events to go to ASDRP, the actual lab, stuff like that. So I think I'll still be able to maintain that social connection there.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Um, in your research, what has been one of the challenges that you've encountered so far?
Yeah, as I kind of briefly alluded to earlier, I think one of the most difficult parts is just kind of learning the math, understanding how these state-of-the-art models kind of work. As I mentioned, the variation autoencoder is a very important and known model right now for generating images, really just generating data. So I think just understanding that model and understanding what's out there right now can be a pretty difficult task, especially because there's so much math, so much sort of intricate ideas already out there in the field. So learning from that and trying to build upon it also can be a really difficult task. So just learning about things out there is probably the most challenging part, but also been pretty rewarding as well, because once you understand something, it feels pretty great that you know and have a better understanding of, what's out there right now.
That's awesome. And you answered my next question, which is what has been the most rewarding?
Yeah, I think that's probably been part of the most rewarding part, but also in addition to that, sometimes just finally building that model or finally getting some sort of step where you're actually coding something does definitely feel good, because you finally understood something, you finally got into a point where you can produce something, which is kind of definitely a fun part. Seeing some results, things like that, and knowing that you really work towards that, not only just like putting some code out there, but understanding the material, understanding how to get there. It's been a really rewarding process. Even if you're not finished with the entire project, just step by step definitely feels great.
Absolutely, definitely. That makes sense. Um, what are the next steps in your research?
As of now, the next steps are pretty much just getting to a point where we can actually generate images. The problem that we've been encountering, at least I've been encountering when I've been trying to do this, is that it takes a long time to train these models, at least to get a good result. It can take hours, maybe even days. So, of course, I don't have all of the computational resources. So, hopefully, the ASDRP server could be helpful for that. But sort of that's been the problem. Just establishing a good model that works well will take some time. But once we get there, I know that we'll be able to go a lot faster with other stuff. So the next steps are building that model, generating more images, and just testing to see using metrics for bias, seeing if we can add those images to machine learning tasks and see if we can reduce bias when we use various machine learning algorithms on those tasks. So that's kind of the next step. And then hopefully from there, we can compare it to other approaches, see if we're doing any better. That could be really cool.
Very cool. Yeah, I think the server will definitely be of good use for that for sure.
Yeah,
Um, and best of luck with that.
yeah, thank you.
And for my final question today, I would love to know what advice you would give to future researchers looking to join ASDRP.
Yeah, I think my main piece of future advice is just start early. I think it's always helpful not to wait until someone tells you to do something when it comes to research and exploring. Just try to have the interest. Of course, there's not going to be everything. Not everything out there is going to be particularly fascinating to you, but find something, find some group. And then before you even have to join the group or get an assignment, something like that, just look out there, see what there is. It's obviously better than nothing. And I think that's super important in really any research experience, because before ASDRP, before it was a little bit less formalized, I did things like science fairs a lot, and there wasn't like some strict deadline when to start working. There was a deadline when the actual fair was, but just to start working, it was all about that genuine interest. So I think that always helps if you can start as early as possible. Then you have the sort of easiest time encountering bugs and problems, and that makes it really simple in terms of actually getting the research done.
For sure. That's great advice. Is there anything else that you'd like to share today?
There's not much. Overall, I think I really have enjoyed the experience. It's been really rewarding learning about new topics, especially algorithmic bias, which I pretty much knew nothing about before. So, and of course, it's also one of the most important topics as well in machine learning, because if we're going to be relying on artificial intelligence, we have to make sure it works well. So learning about that through Dr. Movie and being able to contact someone like him, who's so qualified and so knowledgeable, has also been really rewarding. and also working with my group mates as well. So I think that's been a really important and added experience of ASDRP compared to just working at home. So I really have enjoyed that overall.
That's so awesome to hear. I'm glad it's been such a positive experience, and I hope it continues to be.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking with me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your summer researching, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Goodbye.